How's it going? I'm going to be doing an unboxing and review of the Retroid Pocket 2. If you enjoy tech and gaming content, don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get on to the video. First up is the unboxing. On the front, we just have the different colors of the console. The side has what's included in the box. The back has an overview of the console. Now into the box. I'll have all the specs of the Retroid up on the screen. There's this plastic sheet with the console in it. It's nice that they include a screen protector. I wasn't aware that you got one with it. It is really in this plastic though. You basically have to pry it out of here. Here's an instruction booklet and a USB-C cable. Now onto the console itself. I really dig the Game Boy look of this one. So I'm not sure if I'm just used to the metal body of the RG350M, but the plastic body on this does feel a little cheap and kind of hollow, like it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. When you push on the plastic, it feels kind of weak, but I think they nailed the looks of the console. On the bottom, it has the micro SD card slot and the headphone jack. The top has the triggers and bumpers, power button, volume buttons, USB-C, and micro HDMI out. For the screen, it's a 3.5-inch IPS display with a resolution of 640 by 480, and it looks really crisp. It has great viewing angles, it gets pretty bright, and is really colorful. Here's a comparison with the RG350M. It's a lot lighter than it. It doesn't feel quite as sturdy. Just a little bit bigger though. And then the triggers stick out a little further in the back. About the same thickness, just the thumbstick sticks out a little more. The face buttons are a little small. They don't stick out too far, but that's kind of a good thing for me. They aren't hard to press, but they have a nice tactile feel when you do press them. The D-pad feels good, and it has the same nice tactile feel when you're pushing it. However, it's really stiff, and it did start to hurt my thumb after a couple hours of use. It's also not in the best position. I wish that they would have switched it with the thumbstick. It's in the same position as the original RG350, but it's a little better because at least this has a bit more on the bottom of the console for your hand to rest onto, so it's not as cramped. The L and R buttons are pretty nice. You can push them from any point on them and it will register as an input. And the triggers are actually really comfortable, pretty much better than any other handheld that I've tried. The home, select, and start buttons, they're fine, they do their job. The left thumbstick imitates a Switch Joy-Con thumbstick, but it isn't the same. It doesn't click in, and it feels a lot cheaper. It definitely works fine, but it would have been nice just to have a regular Joy-Con thumbstick. The right thumbstick is just a slide pad. It isn't analog at all, and it doesn't really feel good when it's fully extended. It rubs on the shell of the system. Here I had another problem with the right slide pad. When playing in the PlayStation emulator, it would only detect the left and right. It wouldn't detect up and down. It was pretty frustrating. Tried to change everything in the settings and nothing seemed to help. I'm not sure if it's just this emulator, as I didn't try a different PlayStation emulator, and that might solve the problem. But as you can see here in the button tester, the slide pad works totally fine. It only doesn't work in the PlayStation emulator. The speakers on the console are pretty good. Here I'm gonna just do a volume test, so you might want to turn down if you're wearing headphones. Now onto the emulation. Pretty much all the 2D stuff is going to run at full speed. NES, SNES, Genesis, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. First up, this is just going to be a test of the NES. And then just as a side note, I've barely tested game streaming, so I'm probably going to make that a separate video along with the HDMI out, because I had this weird problem where the console died when I had it off for more than a day, so I wasn't able to test the HDMI out. So look forward to an update video on the Pocket 2. Next up is the SNES, and this runs flawlessly as well. I actually had trouble with this exact game, Yoshi's Island, on the RG350. For some reason it wouldn't run at full speed on that. I don't know if it was an emulator issue or what was going on, but on here it runs perfect. This is a Game Boy Color test, and not much to say. It runs with no problems. This is Game Boy Advanced, and the Game Boy Advance games look great on this screen, and it runs it perfect too. This is the Sega Genesis, and as to be expected, no problems here. This is PS1, and it's going to run everything from PS1 at full speed. This is Dead or Alive, and it's the game that ran the worst on the RG350, and it runs it at pretty much full speed all of the time on this. You shouldn't have any problems with any other PS1 games. The only problem you are going to have that I mentioned before is that the right slide pad isn't going to work sometimes. Like I said, I'm still not sure if it's just the emulator or if it was something else, but the up and down don't register. And I tried a couple games. I tried Medal of Honor and this is Ape Escape, and it didn't work in either of them. But besides for that, it runs PS1 great. Next up is N64 emulation, and I couldn't get a frame counter in this emulator, but it felt really smooth. It's definitely not running at full speed the whole time, as you can hear in the audio sometimes, but it's more than playable. I'm sure there's some games that won't run and aren't going to be playable, but I feel like the majority of them will be. The games I've tested here are Mario Kart and Star Fox. I pretty much got this specifically for N64 and DS, so I'm really impressed with the performance on the N64. Now we have the Dreamcast. It works with some games and not others. Almost nothing's gonna run at full speed, but some stuff is playable. The games I've tested are Here's Crazy Taxi, and as you can see it's not running great, but it's definitely playable. I've also tested Dead or Alive 2, which it's playable, but it has frequent dips below 30, so it's not the best experience. Then Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and that one is kind of playable as well, but it definitely isn't running at full speed. And then the next game I have is Jet Set Radio. And Jet Set Radio kind of feels like Crazy Taxi, where it's definitely not running at full speed, but it feels playable. So as you can see, I wouldn't get this solely for Dreamcast emulation because it doesn't do it the best. But there are games that are playable, so it's a bonus. And if Dreamcast games are something that interests you, I'm going to try and make a video on new Dreamcast games that are playable on the Retroid Pocket 2. So if you want to check that out, don't forget to subscribe and stick around. This is Nintendo DS emulation. And the first thing you need to know about this is you have to buy a paid app to run Nintendo DS. It's around $5, so it's not too bad, and I definitely think it's worth it, but it is a little unfortunate that you have to pay money for it. But it is a really good emulator, and I've had pretty good luck with every DS game that I've tested. They pretty much all ran at full speed or felt like full speed. On some of the 3D games, it did dip here and there, but it wasn't enough to make it unplayable. And last up is PSP. Some games you will be able to get to run at full speed, but the majority of them are not going to run very well. So I definitely wouldn't recommend this if you're looking to emulate PSP. And for the ones that do run, you kind of have to mess with the settings a bit just to get them to work well. I'm not really even sure how worth it is to try and play PSP games on here. Overall, the Retroid Pocket 2 has really good performance for the price, though it has some flaws as mentioned. It runs more than something like the RG350 at a similar price point, and it has more possibilities because of Android. I'd say it's worth the price if you're willing to mess around with some of the settings in the higher end consoles to get them to be playable. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Thanks for watching.